Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our global audience all around the world. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Food and Our Emotions. I just got done telling my dear friend backstage, red.olaughlin, that I am super excited about my lunch today. So that just goes to show you how food can set the tone for something. I guess it can be positive or negative, but the bagel sandwich that is waiting for me today, this afternoon, is bringing me a lot of happiness right now. So let's welcome the star of our show, red.olaughlin. If you don't know him, you must reach out to him, connect on LinkedIn. You can connect with him on Facebook, and you can connect with him on his website, red.olaughlin.com. He is an integral part of everything that we do here at this network. He's a longevity strategist and expert. He has his own show here, which is Talking Heads. He also has the show The Wise Ones, and of course this show, and I know I must be missing others, The Corner Bookstore. And he also helps first-time authors get published. I think he and I are working together on the 10th and 11th book that in the last 2 years, which is incredible. So please do reach out to him, get to know him, and he is our expert for this program. Welcome, Red.
Howdy, Dr. JACALYN. Always a pleasure to join you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. And by the way, you put a lot of time and effort into everything that you do, and you are a distinguished Toastmaster. You could be doing a lot of things other than being here with me today. What is it that brings you back week after week?
Well, you know, it's one of those things once a year, usually about this time, somewhere in the December, January timeframe. I take a look at where am I spending my money? Where am I spending my time? What is my return on my investment? Those are things that if I'm going to, let's say, distinguished Toastmaster, I go to a Toastmaster meeting. If I'm going there and I'm learning stuff and I'm getting some level of return on that, then fine, I'll keep paying the dues and going. Same thing with a networking meeting, or same thing with something else. So it depends on, are you getting some level of satisfaction from the people that you're with? Are you getting some level of return on your investment monetarily, or by getting referrals to other people? There are a lot of things that you measure your amount of time and the money you spend. So I take a look at this show, just like do everything else that I'm involved with, and things that I was actively involved with 3 or 4 years ago, I'm no longer involved with. Things I didn't even know existed 3 or 4 years ago, I'm finding myself drawn more and more into them, where I'm becoming semi-active. In some cases, I wanted to know more about an organization, so I was fairly active for about 6, 8, 10 months. Okay, fine. This is not exactly for me right now, but it might be in the future, so I'm constantly learning. So just like the shows that we're doing here, I think there's a lot of value that's put out. You have 40, 41, 42 shows you do, or available to do every week on the USA Global TV and Radio Network and on the E360 network. And there's just a lot of good information there. It may be great for some people who are want to know more about the English way of life, or want to know more about cosmetics, or you pick a topic, they're out there, entrepreneurs, authors, and we offer quite a variety. Today we're talking about food and emotions. And most of what we've talked about in the past has centered around diets, occasionally a little bit with emotions, but generally some aspect of food and how it affects our lives. And I thought that, we really need to get back into more of the emotional end of things. So as I was preparing for today, I said, happiness. What is happiness? Dr. Jacqueline, what's happiness to you?
Well, I think happiness is being healthy. That's a huge plus. And I think also realizing that happiness, like sadness, can be fleeting. So it's about having certain behaviors and certain mindset so that you embrace whatever it is that you're feeling. So I mentioned about the bagel sandwich. It sounds trite and trivial. And I know that I shouldn't need food like that to make me happy, but I am super excited about it. So it is making my day, Red.
So there's a thing, and then you talked a little bit about mindset. And if you look around the world, and this has been a few years since I did that, I'm sure they probably updated, but Denmark was rated as the happiness country in the world. And they basically said why. And it turns out that there are many ways to look at happiness, but one really good, easy way to affect happiness is your expectations. So you're expecting a particular bagel today in a couple hours. That's got your happiness really ramped up. I'm just zing, 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 bouncing off the walls. That is an expectation that you want to take today. You had that recently. I was at an author meeting a couple months back at Coney Island. We met there ahead of time just to grab a light bite before we actually went to the meeting place. And I never had their onion rings before, and somebody had them on the table. I tasted it, went, whoa. So the next time I went to Coney Island, I went ahead and made sure I had the onion rings. And the next time I went there, I made sure really good. My expectation was I'm going there, that's what I'm going to have. So food does affect us in what we want, but our expectations really and truly affect our happiness. From, let's say that you recently were expecting to go to Pennsylvania to be a keynote speaker at an event. Well, you came down with COVID and unable to go. I am sure your happiness index went from way up here to way down here because those are things that our expectation was not met. If you expect to go on a cruise and the weather disrupts it, if you expect to go on a trip, well, our expectations, when we set them high and they're not met, our happiness levels kind of drizzle away. But if we keep our expectation levels relatively low, like the Danish, and we exceed them constantly, we tend to be a little bit happier. But from another perspective, I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking, as you well know. And if I'm looking at what can create happiness from a chemical perspective in the body, that's pretty important. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. I would definitely agree. One thing that we've discussed before, but I think it warrants just a little bit of conversation and setting the stage, is that embracing a healthy lifestyle doesn't mean that we can have whatever it is that we want to have whenever we want to have it. And you talk a lot about that. On the flip side of that, I was brought up, my father was really adamant about this, that dining was an experience. It was a 4-hour event that took place that people would communicate and we would bond over food. And I was thinking to myself, I know I shared with you that I haven't been cooking, and you had said something about setting a date that I would start cooking and inviting people over. And I thought to myself, it's not the same experience that it used to be, because we would have the appetizers, then we'd have the starters, then we'd have the salad, and we'd have all these different courses. Maybe there's a 4-layer lasagna that has Alfredo sauce and pesto sauce. And people don't eat like that for the most part. So it's not as much fun. Hey, do you want a piece of fish with some broiled fish with some green beans and a glass of water? So I feel like that whole happiness connection with food has been taken away. Does that make sense?
Well, to a degree, you had an emotional event that was repeated over and over again early in life. That was the culture of your tradition.
Yes.
There were celebrations, whatever it may happen to be. If it was a birthday, there would be different food than if it was just a Sunday afternoon dinner. And so there were certain emotional attachments that got made at those events. Had they had Uncle Harry, who nobody liked and was constantly disrupting everything, the balance of happiness would go down, because you don't want to be at that that meal with Uncle Harry. He's not there today. Great. But so there are things that, but there's nothing wrong with being able to incrementally change what I used to have to what I want to have now. Let's say you just start something real simple, a 3-course meal, a soup salad for your beginning one, an entree, and a dessert. And maybe you have somebody come over and all they do is you're sitting out there with the guests and they bring out everything and put it on the table. You don't even have to get up to prep anything once everybody arrives. You are truly the guest. And, the wine glasses are refilled and whatever. And so maybe you only have 4 people there, 3 people and yourself. That's the beginning. Okay. Next quarter, maybe you have 6 people there, and maybe you now have 4 courses instead of 1. But it's one of those ones. Okay, what am I going to have? I really like salmon. Well, maybe with a beurre blanc. There are a lot of things you can do as you start changing things around. Okay, I haven't had that kind of. Let me see if I can make that kind of dessert. Well, I'm going to make the bread for this event. Those are a lot of things you can do that now you're actively involved in from a mental perspective, the happiness aspect that you're expecting from that. And okay, fine, it didn't go as well as I thought it would. What can I do to make it better? And so you take the lessons learned, you correct, you tweak, you make them better. The next one, whoa, that was pretty good tonight. And so those are things that can be done. It's not going to be like it was in the past. It's like I tell people, when I was a kid, one of the best things out there was a milkshake. You go up to the diner or whatever it may happen to be, you go 5 and 10 store. They were so creamy, so luscious. They had the little bubbles in them that's just silky. You can't find anything like that anymore. And the more and more I started thinking about, well, the milk is different today. The ice cream is different today. We got all sorts of toxins and preservatives and other things in there that just doesn't allow that kind of finished product. Now, if I had access to real milk and made my own ice cream, that might be different. But to be able to take today's ice cream and milk and make something that I had 60 years ago, not happening. So there are things that we would love to be able to get back into, but we can't. But with what we have today, we should be able to make a difference. And so if I look at from a chemical perspective, you're already hyped up on the expectation of the bagel because of the stuff in it and how well it tasted that you just had it. But we know that our brains operate on a neurotransmitters, basically a serotonin. And our bodies, depending on the foods we take, turkey is a good one, but you have whole milk, you have bread, you have chocolate, cheese, chicken, nuts, seeds, all sorts of things are very high in tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. So as you start looking at, well, if I eat the foods that increase my serotonin, my brain's going to be a much happier brain because of that. And so if I start looking at, well, what can increase my serotonin, I have to also look at what decreases it. So if I look at if I'm diabetic, well, that's a big drain on my ability to take and my serotonin levels up. Dietary fiber, if I'm not getting enough of that, if I'm getting too much sugar, there's just a lot of things out there. If I'm smoking too much alcohol, there B6, if I don't have enough vitamin Bs, there's just a lot of things that if it's too low, we're going to have a problem. And I'm not getting enough of the right kind of foods to make it high, I have a problem. So anything that will increase our serotonin levels is going to chemically make you happier. So that's one. Over half the brain is omega-3 fatty acid. And so as you start looking, well, what can I do in order to increase the level of omega-3 fatty acids in my brain? Well, if I do that, well, then I can moderate any levels of bipolar depression that might kind of creep in, little fingers. But just taking salmon just to have omega-3s or popping the pill is not quite the same thing because it takes a while to build up. Minimally 6 weeks, realistically 3 to 6 months. And so you have to be able to get that on a regular basis. And when you do, and you start having some level of, let's say that you're on an antidepressant or something like that, you'll find that not very long after you start really increasing your omega-3s, that antidepressant works so much better. You're not feeling near as downtrodden or whatever. So there are things that conventional medicines can be enhanced just by increasing certain kinds of foods that we eat. So from that perspective right there, we're talking about our brain. Serotonins, we're talking about omega-3s. Those are two things that really and truly enhance our ability. But if we just look at food in general, I'm one of balanced nutrition. If you're deficient in stuff, things are going to happen. May not happen overnight, but it will happen over time. I've mentioned several times on the different shows that a vitamin B12 deficiency mimics Alzheimer's. That's why gerontologists will generally give you a B12 shot to see if that's one of the potential causes that can be fixed easily. So, but B12 is not one of those ones you just pop a pill, because B12 is a cobalamin. Most of the time you buy it as cyanocobalamin in a pill and you take it. Cobalamins can't pass through the stomach without being destroyed by your gastric acid, your digestive juices. And so you have to take it under the tongue and then goes into the bloodstream that way. So we need a wide variety of foods to keep all our nutrient levels very, very high. I talk about Dr. Dr. Terry Walls, and her protocol. She is an internist and came down very late in life with multiple sclerosis, and she ended up in a wheelchair. And no matter what they did, everything kept getting worse. She wrote a book called The Walls Protocol, and long story short, she put herself on her own protocol. Within a few months, she was out of her wheelchair, able to walk using a walker. A couple months later, she was able to walk using a cane. By the end of the year, she could bicycle 18 miles. I put my wife on it after months on chemotherapy, where you couldn't really transition into radiation. And within 48 hours, all her chemo fog to fatigue, everything disappeared. Boom, gone. She was taking 1, 2, 3 2-hour naps a day, gone. In fact, I don't think she took a nap for a year. But it just, dietary choices make a difference in the body. When we start getting everything that has those antioxidants, we start addressing that pathway for oxidative stress, which creates a lot of issues in the body. So we can prevent depression, we can prevent anxiety, we can do a lot of things, but we have to be able to get the right kinds of food to combat the stresses that build up and improve our moods overall. How's your gut, just out of general, Dr. JACALYN? Do you have gut feelings about things on a regular basis? I'm sure people, things, events, opportunities. And I'm sure you've probably had it for years and years. And so after a period of time, you kind of trust your gut on some things and not on others. Why do you think so?
It only took 60 years, Red. I trust my gut now instinctively, but I have not always done so. I would question that. And now I think I take a biologic and my gut seems to be doing really well. I'm very thrilled about that. So I feel like I'm more in alignment. And so I'm able to look at things from a different perspective.
When you have an upset stomach, it affects you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it affects every aspect of it. You might have a headache and you can work through it, but you have an upset stomach, you slow down. I mean, there's a definite connection between the brain and the gut brain connection there. And depending on what we put in our gut, our microbiome that's down here is going to communicate back and forth up to the brain. And as such, we have a relationship between the two. And when our gut is good, we feel good, our health is good, we think well, our gut decisions are generally pretty good. But when our gut is upset, when we're not getting the probiotic rich foods that we need, we're not getting the things that balance everything in our body, our gut feelings now start to wander a little bit. But if I can get my gut feeling to be more on the positive side than the negative side, then I'm going to be able to manage digestion better. I'm going to be able to manage stress better. And as my gut is improving, my brain is going to improve, because the two are connected so well together. And as such, even that with the combining of, you talked earlier about the bagel. And I'm sure you probably had an experience within the last, say, 6 months or a year with all the stress with your mom and the business and everything else going on. There's sometimes all you want to do is sit down and pig out on something, maybe watch a little TV, have a glass of wine, just go to your comfort zone and just leave me alone for an hour. I just need some time. I think all of us need a little comfort time, but I think a lot of us take too much of it, and we take it in such a way that it's not as beneficial as it can be. So if we have comfort foods that we go to, and whether that be ice cream or chocolate or whatever it may happen to be, those are things that we rely on because we've had good experiences in the past Let me have that same experience again. I know that if I have this particular kind of ice cream or whatever, I'm going to feel that way. And I'm not talking about having a few cigarettes or half a dozen beers or something like that. Now you're kind of interdicting the body with an alcohol or some other drug that is going to be not quite as satisfying. Temporarily, yes, but from a perspective of take alcohol, the body actually treats it as a poison. It's going to get rid of it as fast as it possibly can. So if you have a big meal and 3 or 4 glasses of wine, if it's late at night, your digestion stops. It will not go until the body gets rid of the alcohol because it treats it like a poison. So it's going to be processed through the liver. Then your digestion starts again. So there's a lot of things we do to sabotage ourselves because we never know about it. But if I look at what foods bring me joy, do I need them right now? Do I need just a little bit? If I were just to bite off the end of a Butterfinger and put it back in the refrigerator, am I happy? Yes. Am I happy that I didn't eat the whole thing? Well, I'm saving it for later because I have an expectation that I want to be happy later. There's a lot of ways to rationalize those kinds of things. And when you start rationalizing, now you get into this aspect of mindful eating. Have you heard that term, mindful eating, Dr. JACALYN?
Absolutely.
What does that
Absolutely.
really mean? What does that really mean to you?
Well, to me, it means that I'm going to sit down and have a meal and be conscious about what I'm doing. I'm not doing something else at the same time. I'm not on my computer. I'm not watching television. I'm not drinking anything. I'm having a meal and I'm embracing every bite of it.
Okay. You can feel the textures in your mouth. You can smell the aromas of the food. You can see. We eat with our eyes before we actually taste something. So minimize the distractions, a TV set, whatever it may happen to be. But as you're going through there, you're concentrating on what you are eating. And as you're starting to get those right kinds of foods in there and you can taste them and you're taking your time, you're chewing your food, a lot of benefits happen because as you start doing that, our bodies now adapt to stimulate the right kinds of amino acids to create the right kinds of neurotransmitters and to also be able to stimulate the hormones and other things in there to increase our endorphins, and it minimizes depression, anxiety. So sitting down to eat from a mindful perspective, if I sit down and I got 5 minutes to eat and I got to be back in the car again and going, that's not mindful eating. But let's say that Dr. JACALYN and I are getting together because I'm flying out to Florida for a couple days and we want to get together. My wife Marilyn and I join Dr. JACALYN and we'll have a nice, maybe 2 hour meal. We'll be very mindful. Sit there, have a nice, maybe super salad and talk and enjoy things, not sit there and guzzle everything down 10 minutes later, be gone. So mindful eating is something that we have to plan in advance. Most of us just can't sit down and do it. But if you can, maybe you might want to start Sunday afternoon dinner, maybe a Friday night meal. Pick a day at a time and say, that's my mindful eating. Turn everything else off and just enjoy it. So that's a way of being able to take food and change your brain and make you happier. One of those things that you exercise a lot, Dr. JACALYN, and I'm sure you probably keep yourself well hydrated. But hydration is an issue that creates a lot of problems with people because they don't hydrate. And as such, they end up eating because they think they're hungry and they're really just dehydrated. But hydration is such a major, major component of our mood and of our cognitive ability to create things and to make right decisions. Just hydration is super critical for all those things. So that's one that you wake up in the morning, you're hungry. Well, maybe it's just a habit you eat in the morning, and maybe you're just dehydrated. My first meal of the day is generally never before 3 p.m. Sometimes later than that, but generally speaking, the first thing I have is fluids, water, unsweet tea, and boom, I'm happy. I can go for hours and hours and hours without having to have food. Okay, it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. I'm fixing something to eat. Fine. That's probably my meal of the day. If I'm going out and having lunch with somebody, that's a different animal. In fact, Dr. JACALYN passed on something I learned the other day. Didn't you realize? We were taking a guy out for lunch, and he chose a particular restaurant. And he says, "I'm only ordering the salads right now because when I was here before, I ordered the appetizers and the main course. The main course came out before the appetizers." And I said, "Well, that's kind of strange. Why would they do that?" He said, "I don't know, but he says I order my salad first, Then they come back, I'll order it. That way I don't have to worry about the disruption. I have a little bit more time. I can relax. I'm not sitting there with all this food piled up in front of me. And I thought to myself, that's kind of a neat way of doing things. Maybe that's something I ought to think about doing. I personally don't eat a lot of salads when I go out. I eat them at the house. I just don't eat them when I go out. What about you, Dr. Jacqueline? How often do you eat out? I know it's not often, but how often?
I don't even remember the last time I went out. I used to go out 5 days a week, and it's been, I don't even know, Red. Maybe I do know. I think it was in March for my birthday. So yeah, that's a big adjustment because that's part of the other thing, which is if I'm going to go out and eat, and then I'm going to feel bad about it later because now I'm eating food that I shouldn't be eating. And as you know, I work out 3 times a day usually, but it's not enough to offset father time. So it used to be that I could do X, Y, and Z and I'd be able to work off whatever it is. But now I follow my Apple Watch, not a paid spokesperson, and it's hard to get 620 calories burned every day. I mean, that takes a real effort, and I'm really pushing myself as it is. So if I think about going out to eat, there's all those additional calories from everything else they're putting into the food. So I'm not really a big fan of it right now.
But if you found a good restaurant that you knew you could go into, order a nice meal, it costs you a little bit, but you know that you have at least one or two other meals you can take home with you, then now you have that same restaurant quality food that can be warmed up minimally. So now you have, okay, I spent $30 for a meal. Well, in reality, I spent either 10 or $15 for 2 or 3 meals. Now, it used to be that my wife and I could go out and we share a meal generally everywhere we go. And prior to COVID, we could generally get by pretty well, depending if we just went to a little sandwich place or whatever. $10, get a sandwich, split it, drink, boom. And I can't. It's rare to find anything under 15. It's like rare to find something under 20. And so it's expectation is well, my expectations changed. I no longer can find a meal for the two of us for under $10. That's gone. It's like trying to find gasoline for 15 and 18.9 cents a gallon. That's gone. It's never coming back. But that's what I used to fill up my car with when I was a teenager. 15.9 cents a gallon. Top it off, all 12 gallons in the tank. But nowadays, so I go into the bank, I got a $20 bill in my brain. Well, let's see if I can spend all of it or I get some change back. And so my expectation now is if I can buy something and I have leftovers that I know all I got to do is just heat up gradually, depending what they are, I will consciously eat 1/3 or 1/2 of what's on the plate because that's what I typically eat anyway, and have the other one taken home. So I can have decent restaurant food if I plan in advance. If I just show up at a place and I'm not thinking, it doesn't always work the same. That might be a way of thinking about something that if you really want that 4-layer lasagna with the Alfredo sauce or whatever, that might be a way of getting it. And then you just cut it into 3 or 4 sections where you have that meal when you feel like having it. You know, if you know it's going to be a little while longer, we'll go ahead and freeze it. And, a lot of issues there, but
One
talk
of
about
my go-tos, Red, that's something I made all the time that I've been toying with, thinking, why don't you do it? And I go back and forth. It's chocolate chip banana bread with on the top white and brown sugar with cinnamon. And it's the bottom part of it is packed with chocolate chips. So that's what I've been debating on because I know it's not good for me. The bananas are good, but I love it. And so if I make it, I'm the one who's going to be eating it. So I say to myself, do you really need to do that? Same thing with the lasagna. Should I have the lasagna when I could have super greens with a piece of salmon and some raspberries and blueberries? I don't know because I have to look at how many calories am I eating versus what I'm burning up. And I'm at that 620 number and it's still not happening.
I can remember I went down to Tahiti uh, with the military a long time ago and spent better part of a week, came back about 6, 8 months later. I took my wife down there for 2 weeks and we stayed at Club Med, and the food they had there was top notch. But they had the chef knew how to make a white chocolate bread. Never had it before, never had it since. I've had some semblances of it, but it's not. But to be able to combine the right amount of white chocolate into bread to just make it melt in your mouth, I mean, it was so sexy and so utterly delicious. But that's something I still think about periodically is white chocolate bread. And I'm at that point in time now where I want to start making my own breads. I've made them in the past, but it's been quite a while. So I'm ready to start shifting back over. And bread is one of those things within the next, about by the end of the year, I'll have experimented with 2 or 3 or 4 different kinds of breads and start tweaking those to make them better and better. But I'll tell you, Dr. JACALYN, I can't think of anything better in my life that I tasted than other than white chocolate bread. It's just, you kept going back and back and back and back and back. It was just unbelievable.
I love how you called it sexy. I think that's great. I'm going to look into it and see about this white chocolate bread. But so red, how do we validate that it's okay to eat this food? I know you've mentioned before, have just a bite of it, but is a bite enough? If you go to all the trouble to make the thing, do you want to just keep it in the freezer for months at a time where you're having a little piece, or do you want to just sit down and have a piece of it? And I know you like ice cream, you got the ice cream on it, and I don't know, then the rest of the week you're worried about the weight.
Well, I remember a year and a half, 2 years ago, I said, get a salad plate. Remember that?
Of course.
Okay. What were you doing with the salad plate? You're reducing the amount of items that you could put on a plate. So you have a nice big plate for dinner, reduce it down to a salad plate. Whatever you can put on that plate, eat. Don't go back for seconds. You pile it up, boom. After a while, you'll find out that I can't eat everything on that plate, or I get full before I get to the done. So what you're doing is you're limiting the calories you have. Caloric restriction is a very good long-term healthy way to live. They found that animals, when you cut back 30% of their calories on a daily basis, they will live 30, 40% longer than their peers who are not cut back on calories. And they will look healthier, they'll look younger, and they'll have less age-related diseases than their peers. Now, for humans, they haven't been able to tap into enough studies to say that's true. But when you look at the people who do live to 100 or more, 1 second here, they have a much better lifestyle. They are not plagued. They're able to take care of themselves. They don't have to be in what do you call it? Not catered, a care facility of sorts. There's a word for it. I can't think of it. Long-term care. But just before that, assisted living. That's what I was trying to think of. But moderation. It's not the 5 beers you had or the 4 glasses of wine. It's moderation. 1 glass of wine, 1 piece of toast on your piece of bread. It's not the 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of bread. It's the moderation that you have with it. So yeah, maybe corn is not as good for you as something else. But if I have literally a quarter of a cup of corn on my plate, I still have the ability to see it, to taste it, to get the texture in my mouth, but I'm not overdoing it. Same thing with mashed potatoes or something else, rice. If I have a baked potato, my wife and I usually split it down the middle. So we end up with a half potato. If I was home years ago, I'd finish the whole potato myself. So part of my expectation is I don't need as much as I had. If you look at the brain and how it connects with the gut, there's actually a stimulation when we start getting our fat build up in our stomach. It goes to the brain and says, I'm there. And that satiety level, it's telling the brain, I don't have to eat anymore. So before you started eating, your brain saying, I'm starving, I need to eat. You start eating, the food gets down here, it starts getting processed. There's a chemical messenger that goes to the brain and says, you're fine. And if you're listening for it, it's there. And it's going to happen somewhere around a third to a halfway through a large plate of food. It'll last for maybe a quarter second, a half a second, maybe a full second. But if you're watching for it, it's going to happen. And if you just push yourself away from the table, you're going to feel absolutely good because you have not gone beyond that level that you need. Oh, you can keep eating. And maybe our parents says, eat it or wear it, because that was the way you were taught, or that's a $45 meal. I'm not going to just throw it back to the kitchen. We have a lot of habits that we developed over time. But the moderation of being able to say, I don't need to eat all that. Yeah, there's a whole loaf of bread there. So what if I throw half of it away? It is what it is. I'm there for me, not because the bread is there for the bread. And so I think it's a mindset of what do you need, but also what do you expect? And we know that needs talk to our conscious brain, but doesn't have any ability to affect a change in our life. But if we start talking about our expectations, we can talk to our subconscious brain and actually start being able to effect a type of change in our lifestyle. So look at not being able to finish everything. Don't worry about whether you finish it. Don't worry about whether you have to throw it away. So it's a matter of buying it in realistic proportions. If you have the ability to shrink wrap and freeze it, great. If you don't, well, shop better, be more intelligent about what you're doing. But that's just part of what we have to be doing. But we all have preferences as to what we want. I go to the store, I buy whatever. I take a look at, oh, that's pretty cheap. So I go over there, I bring it back home, cut it up or whatever. I'll put it in a vacuum sealed bag, put it in the freezer, and put a date on it. I used to not put dates on it, but put a date on it, what it is. That way, oh, okay, it sounds like something good. Throw it in to defrost, and later on I'll have it. But there's a lot of things we can do with our foods if we think about them in advance and we apply our certain expectations for, I need a healthier lifestyle than what I have now, not just taste good. There are sometimes, yes, we need to have something that tastes good. I will not argue that. But Dr. JACALYN, there are other times when we really need to think more about what we're doing with regard to the food choices that we have.
Absolutely. Great points as always. So I'm still thinking about the bagel and smiling, and then I'll be really good at dinner. Well, my friend, we are out of time for this program. What would you like to leave our audience with today?
Well, we talked about foods that increase the level of brain health. We're talking about anything that increases serotonin. We talked about what we talked about here. We talked about cheese and bread and chocolate and whole milk and turkey and chicken and things like that. Those are things that increase the level of serotonin's neurotransmitters. We talked about being able to keep natural levels of vitamins and minerals and amino acids and nutrients that our bodies need. So we need to have that balance. We need to increase our amounts of omega-3 fatty acids because that's our building block in our brain. Being able to keep our bodies, our guts stabilized so that when we're digesting food, we're having the maximum utility out of our gut. Being able to be mindful about what we're eating and taking time. Turn off the phone, turn off the TV. Just take some time and enjoy what you have. Enjoy being with another person. Put the fork down, chew your food. Okay, pick the fork back up, have a conversation, think about things, enjoy. You have your little critters outside that you can't wait to get to and have a nice meal with them. There are a lot of things that you can do, but we just don't necessarily always go about making them happen. Doesn't happen today, doesn't happen tomorrow. And so I find out myself, if I don't write something down, I can guarantee it probably will not happen. So I'm a big writer of, okay, I need to make this happen today. I know it needs to happen, but if I write it down, chances are getting greater. So maybe write on a piece of paper, mindful eating, more omega-3, and just look at it periodically. It'll eventually creep into here and hopefully make a better difference in your life.
Thank you, Red. I wanted to just share one other thing because this came up recently. Somebody was sharing with me that they just started taking a whole bunch of vitamins. And I said, you can't just go and take a whole bunch of vitamins. You need to have a plan, a process, because too much can be a problem as well, right?
Well, if you're just taking vitamins for your nutrients, there's a lot of things. Vitamin E is 8 different molecules. You get one of them as a synthetic. You might as well not even be taking it. You can't take the vitamin B12 as a pill because it can't pass through stomach acid. A lot of times they don't give you vitamin K2 in what you're having. That creates bone problems down the road. So just because you're taking something thinking that you have the right amounts, calcium. Calcium is generally a calcium carbonate in a pill. It ends up in the toilet. Even with food, it's very difficult to digest. So if you're taking calcium, take it as a citrate or some other kind of complex. But then you have to have magnesium in order to get that into the bloodstream. So if you're taking magnesium and calcium at the same time, probably not as beneficial. So you need to make sure you have some of these things before you have others. Okay, you get the magnesium and the calcium together. Now they're making them more bioavailable. But if you don't have enough vitamin D3, which most people don't, it ends up in the toilet. It doesn't get into the bloodstream. But let's assume for a moment you do have enough vitamin D3. It gets in your bloodstream. it's only going to go to two places. One, it's going to go to your heart valves and arteries if you don't have enough vitamin K2, or it's going to go to your bones because you have enough vitamin K2. You got the calcium to your bones, but if you don't keep your body in an alkaline condition, which most of us are not, the bloodstream is going to leach calcium from the bones. Now you're going to end up with a long-term potential of being osteoporosis down the road, brittle bone, whatever. So there's just things that build up over time. And part of this show and other ones on the USA Global TV Radio Network are to help provide awareness and education as to how can we actually really and truly improve our health. And today's food and emotions, that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much, Red. I appreciate all the preparation that you did for this show. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, and who would you like to contact you?
I help authors quite a bit trying to get their books written. I'm a speaker primarily on health and nutrition, concentrating on longevity. red.olaughlin@gmail.com. My email is probably the best way to reach me. It's red, like the color, RED, .olaughlin, OLAUGHLIN. So it's red.olaughlin, OLAUGHLIN @gmail.com. Or give me a call on the phone. It's on the banner up there, but for those people on the audio network, it's 281-687-1188. Again, 281-687-1188. Love to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Red. Appreciate you. And we'll be coming right back with the Corner Bookstore. So I'll see you over there, Red.
In about 18, 19 minutes. I can't wait.
Me either. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Please do reach out to Red. You can go over to LinkedIn and you can find him there. He is a wealth of information and knowledge, and that's what he's doing here. He's providing education and awareness, and you have the opportunity to reach out with him and connect and collaborate. So I hope that you'll do that. All right, we're going to close out with some of our sponsorships, and we'll be right back with the Corner Bookstore. So please do watch our sponsorships. We'll see you shortly.
USA Global TV and Radio, in partnership with Dr. JACALYN LLC, present Amazon #1 best-selling author, Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. Dr. JACALYN KERBECK is a certified life, career, and executive coach who teaches people how to listen at an elevated level through her courses and her books. Dr. KERBECK teaches her clients how to open their hearts and express themselves through their creative genius. In her children's book series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the listening mentor, Dr. KERBECK teaches children and their families how to listen at an elevated level. Dr. KERBECK has worked with clients across the world to guide them in how to express themselves and communicate at a highly effective level. Join our team of elevated listeners so you can listen without judgment, without providing a solution, without interruption, and without stealing the stage. To order your books today, go to drjacalyn.com or Amazon.
This program is brought to you in part by the British School of Excellence and founder, Mr. Philip Sykes. Building confidence, changing lives. Do you share our view that etiquette is a set of modern life skills that are essential for personal and professional success? Join us as an etiquette coach and change people's lives through the power of etiquette and manners.
The last few days have been really amazing. I had a trainer course from the British School of Etiquette.
And I must say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made and one of the best investments I've made in my own training and development.
Now, words alone will not describe the transformation and the positive path that I have traveled with the British School of Etiquette.
I found I learned a lot from the lessons this time I came.
The last few days with the British School of Etiquette have been fantastic.
And what I've learned now is really beyond my expectations.
This is the most rewarding experience and the best investment I have made this year.
It was just great. I learned so much, and when I go back to Belgium I will incorporate a lot of it into my day-to-day life and business.
It's been absolutely wonderful for the whole week that we were here.
I feel transformed, and I feel like blowing a trumpet and tell people, come and do this school. This class is the best. This is the best school ever.
You should take it. It will change your life. immediately.
I am now able to teach other people how to bring the best of them.
Thank you.
Thank you, BSC.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to our clients for their testimonials on the Train the Trainer program. Our exponential and global growth is so significant that we've evolved from the British School of Etiquette to the British School of Excellence, where we're investors in people. Let us invest in you and your career. Contact us to become an etiquette coach. Go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. Start your career and elevate your success today.